Thank you very much, Kevin. Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming out. My name is Taylor McPartland. I'm co-founder of FilmBreak, which is a data-driven marketing platform that allows filmmakers to build and engage their audiences early on in the filmmaking process, having greater insight into who that audience is, what they like, what they dislike, and valuable data that essentially and theoretically reduces marketing costs and increases revenue for filmmakers. And I'm very proud to be the moderator of this panel. We have some rock star guests here with us tonight, and we're going to be talking a little bit about what is happening in the film space right now. We're seeing that Steven Spielberg and George Lucas are talking about an implosion in the industry. The second screen is now becoming the first screen. Celebrities are starting to go to Kickstarter to fund their projects. Amazon is going after directly to consumers for consumer sentiment, to picking slates of upcoming TV shows. And there's a lot going on. There's a real paradigm shift in the industry. And so to begin with, I would like to go down the line of our panelists here and let them introduce themselves, and then just very quickly offer maybe a moment in the past few years that led to this shift in what we're seeing today.
Okay, sure. Should I pick this up?
Yeah.
This one's on.
I could just yell. I have a loud voice. So hi, my name's Ethan Applen. I work in technology and business strategy at Warner Brothers. I've worked in technology and entertainment for a while now. Been at Warner Brothers about 5.5 years, working on a number of different things, but for the last couple of years sort of been focused on innovation and ways that we can help facilitate innovation internally at the company and sort of speed up the whole process, from idea generation to prototyping to field testing things all the way down to implementation. And I think a big thing that we've seen is sort of move to digital really speeds up the sort of time horizon which you're looking at. And companies like ours, speaking at least for Warner Brothers, historically, maybe not the fastest moving thing in the world. So how do we approach these things slightly differently to speed up that whole process? And that's both internal and as well with external partnerships. That's why we've been working on this Media Camp Entertainment Accelerator project. So, should we talk about the disruption? We'll go to that. So we actually talked about this a little bit yesterday, and I said I had the chance to think about this a little bit last night. I was saying I personally think a lot of what's happening is evolutionary. I don't think it's the end of the world for media companies. I don't think things are going to blow up. I was working at a startup 7 years ago up in the Bay Area when YouTube was really taking off, and at the time everyone said, studios are done, man. Professional content's over. YouTube's going to do everything, and it's just going to be content creators on the web. But I think we've seen content is still king. The same thing came up with Netflix, right? Now distribution's king, content's dead. But I think we still see that content creation is really the key, and so there are changes to that. The one biggest thing I've seen sort of within my world, maybe this is too academic, I don't know, but one of the things that I noticed this year was I go to CES every year, and this was the first year at CES it didn't feel big and glitzy. It felt like it kind of shrunk from last year, and it was something that I kind of felt sad. I don't know what it was. There wasn't anything big, and new to report or anything. And then I went to South by Southwest in March, which is crazy, and Al Gore's there and Elon Musk, and Grumpy Cat, who had the biggest line of anybody. And it was a whole other world, right? The energy there was amazing, and I'd been going there. I went there first in 2007 and hadn't been back in a long time. But what I came away with thinking was that that's a huge shift that we're seeing where, and this happened in around 2000 when computers started to become commodities. We had Comdex before CES, and that sort of shrank and went away. And then CES blew up because everything was about new, awesome home technology. And now I kind of feel like that stuff's starting to get a little more commoditized into platforms. And what's really important is software, which is what's really at South by Southwest. And that can be, two guys building an app or was it 8 guys that built Instagram and sold it for $1 billion or whatever the next $1 billion company is. That to me is kind of fascinating. That's sort of a democratization of access to these apps, which do have a big impact on us. So anyway, that was long-winded, but.
You know, he threw that question to us yesterday, and we're all on the phone going, so my name is Bettina Sherick. I'm SVP of Strategic Digital Marketing for 20th Century Fox International. That means everything outside of the United States and Canada. And so if you link in with me and send me something about a domestic product, I am the wrong person. I have been at Fox since 2000, and I was the first online marketing hire for the home entertainment group. So it was my job to figure out what in the world to do to actually market these physical discs and physical tapes, yes, back when there were VHS tapes, to this community that was looking for information online. So pretty much everything that we do now, from websites to social to mobile to ad for gaming, I've had a hand in it. It's been quite a wild ride. Before that, I was actually in retailing, and I launched an e-commerce site when everyone said nobody would ever buy anything online. So yeah, I've been in digital for a while, and so I've seen a lot. And when I start thinking about what is causing the shift today, I think it's just that we finally see the shift today because of all of the social aspects that are now easy to use. When I was in grad school, I became very sadly drawn to these sites like GeoCities. I mean, like, fascinated by them. I would spend hours trying to put my resume online, and had like these kids from Israel teaching me HTML over ICQ. None of this means anything anymore. But now it's like you can do it like that. And so it's just the speed of change. And recently when I start talking about the speed of change, I point to that Gangnam Style video that none of us ever want to see again. But it really tells you just how small the world has become, because the first video to hit 1 billion views on YouTube is in a language that only 70 million people in the world speak. Okay, so, but that explains a lot. That explains why all of a sudden it feels like it's really fast. It's because you find out about it quickly. It's because borders have gone away. It's because physical discs are starting to shrink. More people are downloading, more people are used to these devices. You've got a computer in your pocket right at this moment. And so I think it's actually going to be really fun going forward. I don't think it's a doom and gloom situation. I do think, though, when I look at my focus group of 1 at home who's 10, he's absolutely happy programming a Saturday night of viewing activity around a site that nobody knew before called Machinima. Does anybody know about Machinima? Okay, yeah. So yesterday I took home a t-shirt signed by some kid named Syndicate, and I am the best mom in the world. Okay.
I'm Maria Pacheco. I'm the Senior Director of Marketing for the interactive team at DreamWorks Animation. So I'm a little different than the first two here. Our team is tasked with taking the brands that DreamWorks has and translating them to interactive experiences. Specifically, my background is in mobile gaming, and I've been in mobile games for 10 years. On the carrier side and at other big brands such as Vivendi and EA. And I was also at a startup and EA bought us for $675 million. So I've been on both sides of the fence. And for me, the question about everything changing so quickly, this is all I know. I've been in mobile since the launch of 3G. And we have CTIA every 6 months. We've got tons of mobile conferences, because to thrive in mobile, you have to stay up to speed with everything that's going on, and it changes every day. You can wake up and there's a new startup somewhere that provides new technology and a new way for you to speak to your customers. So that's happening constantly for us. In terms of our company, DreamWorks, what we're doing now is actually launching mobile games ahead of the film openings. So we launched our game, The Croods, with Rovio. They made the Angry Birds. We launched that game a few weeks before the movie opened. We actually had 3 million downloads of that game before the movie opened. And we were able to speak directly to those people who already have identified with the brand because they downloaded the game onto a very personal device that they keep in their pocket and in their purse all day, every day. So we're able to communicate with them and let them know, hey, the movie is opened. Click on this link and it'll take you to the nearest location for you to see the movie. Same thing with our Turbo Racing League game. Our DreamWorks movie, Turbo, is launching July 17th, and we actually launched our game on May 16th. We just hit 8.5 million downloads of that game this week, and thank you. Turbo is a little snail. He wants to grow up and race in the Indy 500, so our game is a racing game. So it's been a lot of fun, and to see the numbers increase, so much before the film provides us a great opportunity because, again, we're able to communicate to. I'm hoping by the time the movie opens, we'll have around 10 million downloads, and that's 10 million people who are already familiar with our Turbo snail. So we can communicate through push notifications. We can communicate through interstitials that people will see when they launch the game. So that's kind of what we've been working on at DreamWorks. It's a little bit different, in terms of promoting movies, but there are billions of people playing mobile games, and the business is only increasing, so our company thinks it's a great way to get the word out about our properties before they even go into theaters.
All right, I'll just go then. Hi, I'm Jason Cooper. I am producing a documentary film right now called Kickstarted, which is a documentary about the crowdfunding revolution. We've been filming for about 6 months and are currently crowdfunding the film now to sort of live the dream. You guys can find out about it at kickstartedmovie.com. But more importantly, we've been talking to a lot of filmmakers and entertainers that are using crowdfunding to launch their products and build audiences before they even produce whatever they're looking to produce. And sort of tied closely to that is that all the tools, and I guess this kind of maybe will answer my question of when did everything sort of happen. Like all of the tools of production are now available to anyone. It's not just the physical production, but the distribution, the marketing through social media, and now the fundraising. All of the elements of making a piece of entertainment are accessible to anyone, anywhere in the world. So that allows anyone with a dream to make something, and I think that's pretty incredible. And before I got into producing this, I was a interactive producer at NBC Universal, and so I have a bit of a background in distributing digital content. That's based a little bit as well. And the questions about the speed of change. I think the big thing that for me that's happened is that the value chain of the entertainment business, finally, the most important element has never had a say at the table. The audience has always been the last one to influence what gets made. And suddenly that's shifted through all of those different things, whether it's literally funding what you want, or following on social media, or on Amazon, in Amazon's case, voting for the shows that you like. We are shifting the model from, it's like 4 executives in a room who don't understand anything, who's like throwing spaghetti at the wall, to literally sourcing what's going to be made from the people that are going to consume it. And that's just a massive shift that I think, I don't know if there's any one thing that made that happen, but that's I think the cultural change that's going to change everything for us. So.
How do you see the shift within the crowdfunding model changing away from the very independents who are just trying to get their idea off the ground to more, what we've been seeing a lot of in the news is these celebrity and almost studio-driven endeavors with Veronica Mars and with Zach Braff. how is that shifting the perception of crowdfunding?
Well, I think the problem is that there are dual perceptions of crowdfunding, and we talked about this on the phone call. The first is the people that are like actually doing it, who understand it, where they see it as becoming part of the process. If you gave money to Zach Braff or to Veronica Mars, you did it because you want to be a part of the filmmaking experience, and that's a different type of relationship than you're used to when you buy an entertainment product or any product. You're not there watching them make it. For better or for worse, no one wants to watch how the sausage is made, but you get to do that in these cases, and I think it's exciting for real passionate fans who get to be a part of it. The outside world that doesn't really understand that dynamic or isn't prepared to make that commitment see it as you're giving money to people to make something, and they're taking no risk. And I think that will change as more people get exposed to crowdfunding and experience it firsthand, what it's like to have it. And there are creators who, honestly, who don't know that either, and who just put it up thinking it's an ATM machine. And eventually all of that stuff will fade out because those projects won't succeed in the long run, and the people that back them won't feel satisfied. So I think the shift is that, and Zach Braff, I backed his project because I wanted to see if he was going to do it. He is updating regularly. He is showing people the process of what it takes to make this movie. And that's a truly valuable thing if you like Zach Braff. So.
Do you think the pushback that he's getting, him specifically is getting from the community is warranted, or do you think it's completely off base?
I think it's completely off base. And it's like, it's one, because people don't understand independent film and how hard it is to make a movie. Like Zach Braff, Seth Rogen was on, and I made a little video about this, but Seth Rogen was on Howard Stern making fun of Zach Braff. He's like, Zach Braff can't get $2 million. Well, no, he couldn't. Like, he tried. So, the movie was going to cost more than $2 million. That was the other part. It's going to cost like $8 million. And he knew he could get some of it, but he had to show that there was a market for it. And he didn't get a chance. He tried for 10 years to make this movie. So that's one side of the coin. I think the other side is that people, again, they don't understand what he's selling. They think he's getting money from people for nothing. And that's not true. He's just selling something earlier on in the process. And that's really no different than if he had made the movie and put it out there. It's just a smarter way to do it, and I think there's a lot of jealousy from people who can make noise because they didn't do it first. So
doesn't it seem too? I mean, it seems like the reaction too is that people are acting like somehow Zach Braff is like suckering people into giving him money, like it's a snake oil salesman thing. But they're buying T-shirts and other things and stuff like that. I mean, they're willingly giving him this money. It's not. They know exactly what they're getting. I think. I mean, at least the people participating.
Yeah.
I think.
Well, I think what will happen is that, and it's not really on his shoulders alone, but this first wave of people that use it, are they going to use it correctly and prove that to not be true? If he puts out a movie that people are satisfied with and an experience that people are satisfied with, they're going to do it again. Maybe not with Zach Braff, but whatever other creator they're doing it for. And I think as a filmmaker or anyone who's creating content, that's a great thing. You want them to succeed because then suddenly everyone's going to be interested in backing something that you have a passion for. And it's a really great way to launch something.
Do any of you think that there's going to be a great impact on the studio side of things from crowdfunding? Are we ever going to see Avatar 2 crowdfunded for $300 million?
Everybody looks at me. Okay. So I am not at liberty to speak about how we fund movies. It was when whoever's in the audience that's, a journalist or a blogger, understand me. I'm not at liberty. But if I can answer this way. There are a lot more than 4 people throwing spaghetti at a wall to figure out what movies are made. And there's a lot that goes into figuring out the potential of a film based on both domestic and international audiences. Goes into all of our casting and all of the decisions that go into greenlighting the film. It is harder now with physical going away, digital coming in. The financials are changing. I personally think, and this is my own personal observation, I thought what Zach Braff did was very brave. Veronica Mars, we're all looking at that and saying, that's super cool. I actually think that at some point we have to stop calling it crowdfunding. We have to stop calling it, because if you think about it, Kickstarter, why did that start? It was so that people with benevolent projects could get money to get them done, right? And unless you're making a movie about children in Uganda, it's probably not a benevolent project that's getting funded. Veronica Mars would probably live without another one, right? But we want one. So if we can somehow shift the vocabulary and start, looking at it as, build it into the social. I would love to start a film and have an avid social community already involved in the process. I would absolutely love to not have to pay Facebook so that I have people like my page. I would absolutely love to be able to email an audience and say, hey, what do you think? So, as everybody gets their snark out, and everyone, figures out just what this means in engaging a truly avid movie-going audience, we'll see this somehow get adopted into the system. That's my personal opinion.
Which brings up a good question. When it comes to crowdfunding, what is really more important? Is it the money that you're getting, or is it the audience and the evangelists that you're building surrounding the project?
I think it's both.
I'd say that, like in Zach Braff's case, it was the audience, because that's what, that was the proof in the pudding that allowed him to go get a foreign distribution deal. I think there's another company that backed him as well financially.
But without the audience, he wouldn't have gotten the funding.
Yeah,
so it really
of course.
is both.
It's like, the money he got was just a portion of the budget, and I think that's like, okay, now I know there's an audience for this movie coming. We'll give you what you need to finish it. And for any studio or bigger entity, or even a celebrity, I think that's crucial. The money matters to people like myself. You probably can't produce the thing without it, but if you're already established, the point is you're building a community around what you're doing.
It's this sort of social proofing concept, right? I mean, which is pretty cool. Yeah.
Oh, that's good. No, let's use that.
Yeah,
Social proofing.
which
That's
is
really
pretty cool. I mean, you get to, what might have been a focus group 10, 20 years ago about what movie would be cool. You can actually kind of do it. I mean, there's, certain titles this will work with, other stuff it might not work with.
I'm pretty sure that, Avatar 2 is not something that people really do. And Kevin, don't forget, no posting on Twitter until I look at them before. Okay, all right.
If Kickstarter could raise $300 million around a single project, they would be pretty psyched, I think. So.
And so, final note there. What are the thoughts on equity-based crowdfunding? Do you think this is something that's ever going to come into fruition, or in any real way, or is it always going to be this reward-based?
It's definitely coming. I mean, the states are jumping ahead of the SEC. I don't know if this is the conversation that we're having here, but just so you guys know, obviously the Jobs Act was passed about a year ago, and which is going to allow for equity-based crowdfunding to happen. The SEC is putting together rules to protect the consumer to make that happen. But the states now are seeing the potential of it, and they're making their own rules. So like Georgia and Kansas are ahead of it, and it's coming regardless of how we look at it. In particular to entertainment, I think it's a double-edged sword, because it's going to present, and I asked Zach Braff about this because he told me when we interviewed him that he was going to, had it been available, made the film equity-based so he could share the wealth with the people that believed in him. The problem is that you get two different types of people backing your project in that case. You get people that think it's going to make money, and you get people that love the project. And there probably is some crossover there, but the people that backed it because they think it's a good investment will have different expectations about how you should use that thing and how you should put it out into the world than the people who backed it because they loved it and they want to support the art, and they're a little bit more behind the artist, not the end product. And I think it would be much harder to deal with those two differing sets of people than creators expect, and I'm curious to see how it affects the film industry, because it's like, or any sort of art form, you're not doing it necessarily for money, and that's probably why you're crowdfunding, and you're doing it because you like dying to make whatever you want to make. That if you add that element in there, it really corrupts it. And so, I think it'll be a good thing for a lot of different industries, but for the arts in general, I think it will be more of a problem than a solution.
We're talking a lot about the importance of, specifically on crowdfunding here, but the importance of building that audience early on in the process. Aside from crowdfunding, what are some ways that maybe in your experience you've seen or have heard of that filmmakers can really use to build their audience early on in the process and excite that audience so by the time the film is done, there not only do you have those evangelists, but you have an army that's ready to download or to buy or whatever the case might be.
So right now we have Brian Singer in Montreal, and he's filming X-Men Days of Future Past. When he started, woo, yeah, that's right, we did that, yeah. When he started pre-production, he started tweeting out just little tidbits from his office, as sets went up, and now as they're shooting. And I believe when he started, he had 6,000 fans on Twitter, and now he has 93,000. And we're taking that content and we're building a Tumblr page with it. And so we'll have all of this content that is, straight from the director, which then we'll be able to add in other stuff as we have events around the world, Vines, Instagram, like animated GIFs, and that's the type of content that fans are just eating up, loving, sharing. I think it's taken studios a little bit of, we had to kind of have a bit of a kick in the pants, because typically a studio would wait until that absolutely perfect still, or that beautiful asset which we spend most of our money building, which is the trailer. We would wait until that was ready before we would go out. But now it's just these little tidbits, these little nuggets that the fans are just loving. And that goes again back to the idea of this social web and the ability to share something. It's like, I'm trying to explain to an executive why Vine is so important, why Instagram and their 15-second videos are so important. And it's like, unless you're on Wi-Fi, no one's watching a trailer on their phone. But if somebody sends something through Facebook, and it's a title you like, it's a title you're interested in, and it's a little short video, or it's an animated GIF, it's not going to eat up your bandwidth, you'll watch it. And so, that kind of shift has to go through the culture.
Our free Crudes app actually hit #1 in over 40 countries a week before the movie opened. And so for us, that was pretty valuable, because in our app, it introduced you to the characters in the game. And so you had, 3 million people internationally and in the US that had this app on their devices, and they were already familiar with the brand and with the family and with all the family members. So they kind of had an idea what the movie was going to be like. They had already been interacting, with the game and kind of exploring the Crudes world on their own. For our game Turbo Racing League, we launched a Facebook page just for the mobile game, and today we hit 130,000 fans. And it's a Facebook page for a mobile game. And the movie isn't opening until July 17th. Another fun thing
we have your fans for the movie page.
Yes. Another fun thing we did for Crudes, we had a partnership with an egg company called Great Day, because it's a prehistoric family, and they ate eggs sometimes. 18 million cartons in grocery stores around the country that had codes printed on them that allowed you to get free currency inside of our Crudes game. And that was on 18 million egg cartons, so in grocery stores across the country. So, and all of that happened before the movie opened.
Can I ask a question? What did you do to promote? Was there any promotion of the game before the movie came out? How did people know that was the game to download?
We made a pretty good game. We also worked with a very good developer, Rovio. They have, billions of downloads, and we worked a deal with them, and they were able to promote the game pretty aggressively. We also had to obviously pitch the game into Apple to get, make sure that they thought it was a quality game so that they would feature it. Some fun PR and things like that.
but it didn't like ride the back of the movie publicity.
No, the game was launched about 2 or 3 weeks before the movie came out. And for Turbo, you know, like I said, we're at 8.5 million downloads now. Theatrical marketing just started, you know, like a week or two. And so our little snail racing game was out on its own starting, you know, May 16th. So a lot of people probably saw that app in the App Store and didn't even know that it was associated with a movie. But it's luckily for us at DreamWorks, you know, we're kind of known for fun little, you know, cartoons, or not cartoons, but, you know, animated movies and really endearing characters. And the idea of a snail racing is so cute and kind of unique, and especially from a marketing perspective, in the App Store there's tons of racing games. Fast and Furious launched the same day that our Turbo Racing League game launched, and it actually got more featured, a better featured placement inside the App Store. But you know, it's a really fun game, and the fact that it's a snail brings it back a little bit more to the middle and makes it a little bit more enticing to a more casual audience as opposed to a hardcore racer audience that might be downloading Fast and Furious. And we're the #1 racing game in all of the app stores right now, and you know, we beat Fast and Furious.
When, from a filmmaker's perspective, when do you think it's a good time to really hit the ground running with this kind of a marketing campaign? We were talking a little bit about, you know, very early on, you know, tweeting in pre-production, and you know, games that are leading a film by 3 or 4 weeks, going up to the actual release. Does it? I'm sure it depends to a certain extent on the type of content that's being released. But is there a time that you really like to dive in, actively engaging those fans in a big way?
I think for us, we've decided our sweet spot is about 2 months before movie opening to really build up the audience. And the other thing too is our apps are free, you know, so it really allows you to have a much larger funnel of people who are willing to download apps, free apps as opposed to paid apps. But we feel pretty good about 2 months ahead of time.
Okay. And then filmmakers, especially in the independent world, there's so many social tools that they need to be on top of in addition to making the film. If they're kickstarting, they're doing that. And there's Facebook, Twitter, you know, Vine, games, all these different other outlets. Is it a case-by-case basis where they should put their focus? Do they need to have their fingers in all these different social outlets? Where do you think fans are gravitating, and where do you think they get the most bang for their buck?
It depends on what type of audience you're trying to reach, really. I mean, okay, on Facebook you're getting moms, adults, and some kids. I mean, they're there, but they also know that their parents are there, so they go to Tumblr, right? And so, you know, if you're talking about a movie like Percy Jackson or some of the, like Maze Runner, Mortal Instruments, like you have to have something on Tumblr. I think the smartest way is through Twitter, because then you're getting an audience, but you're also getting journalists that are following you that will then follow up on what it is that you've done. A lot of what Bryan Singer's been tweeting for X-Men has ended up on all of the film blogs and everything. But it's like social media, you have to have a strategy behind it, or else you can waste a lot of time, you know, trying to figure out what you put on everything. In some cases, you do have to do all of those, but you have to know what audience you're talking to.
Mm-hmm.
Can I just, from like an independent perspective, I think it's totally right. You want to be where your audiences are and know who it is, but you can even be less. You don't want to think necessarily about the demographic, but more the community. And so
Psychographic. I didn't say demographic.
Yeah.
Psychographic.
Yeah, like you can so if I was making a movie about surf culture, I better be on every surf blog and site and develop those personal relationships. But I mean, if you're crowdfunding something in particular, like that's where those people are going to find out about you. And so you spend all of your social capital you can in those communities. And again, for our film, we're out talking on crowdfunding blogs and communities. Like that's where our bread and butter has been. So I think it almost allows those tools that are available and the fact that all these communities have built, not necessarily just on social media, but around on the web, have allowed anyone to reach who they're looking for in a really effective way. And the smaller you are, actually, the almost more nimble you can be, because you could focus directly at who you want to reach.
I'm kind of curious the combination between those two. So from a studio side, I'm not a marketing guy, so this is me asking. I don't know the answer to this question at all. Do you do sort of the same social marketing for smaller budget original content? Say, I mean, I'm trying to think because we do the same thing with Lord of the Rings. I mean, I think that's all Peter Jackson does it himself and gets the stuff out there all the time. But I'm like, if it were a smaller $10 million romance, would a studio be able to find the audience using social? Would we do that, or would we just go, we're going to go for word of mouth later?
No, you can go out there and strategically find the right people to talk to and get them to champion your film. I mean, we do a lot of, hand-picking influencers and inviting them to come and talk to the filmmaker, to go into the, Avid and sit down and see what they're working on. And, maybe a good example isn't, it's a big film, but we had to approach it like a smaller film, and it's Life of Pi. And, here it is, a book, a best-selling book that nobody ever remembers reading, even though everybody has it on their shelf. And it's about a boy on a boat with a tiger. So, your elevator pitch isn't so strong. And it's Ang Lee. It's a big 3D spectacle. Couldn't have been made. That movie could not have been made before Avatar and Rise of the Planet of the Apes. And so we had to really work that movie. We did things, down to finding very, specific audiences. We want to find people who are into spirituality, people who have changed their life, dramatically, people who have gone on an adventure, people who, we went down, the gamut. And we went to Yahoo, and they were just launching their Yahoo Contributor Network, which is made up of bloggers that get paid by Yahoo for how much their content gets shown on the network. So they already have to have, Twitter and all those, they have to have a following, but then Yahoo will then editorialize them on their platform. And we wrapped those editorial with Life of Pi branding, but the stories themselves weren't about Life of Pi. The stories themselves were people quitting their job and going to teach English and ending, in some country, or it was remarkable. We got 1 billion editorial impressions from doing that, and we were shocked. It was phenomenal, but it's because we went where people could tell emotional stories. And then as people are reading these stories, they would end up being top editorial on some of these sites for days. And we did this around the world in all these different languages. So yes, it works. It works.
I think that one thing that you're able to do as an independent is give people social investment into what you're doing. And before I did all this stuff, I was in reality programming, and one of the ideas that I've been trying to propagate is taking a piece of content and not distributing it broadly, giving it to a very, very small audience of your core viewers exclusively, so that they become attached to it emotionally. The same way that if you saw a random band at a bar, and then 2 years later they're playing on late night or something like that, you're oh, I was there first. I think that's such a great way for independent, and actually for studios too, to let people be have an emotional connection to the origin of something before it was out there, before you did the big push. That is so powerful. For some reason, we all want to be a part of the in-group. And that's a way you can kind of fake it or actually do it like that. And those people will become your biggest fans and advocates amongst their, and especially if you're very smart about it, you give it to the right group of people, not necessarily influencers, but people that are again, if I'm making a movie about surf, surf culture, and I give it to the one surf blog where these people are the most inner circle, it's gonna float out from there eventually. And so those people get to go and tell all their friends who are on the fringe that they are a part of it first, and then sort of the cool factor passes through whatever your audience is that you're trying to reach.
Just by the way, there's also, there are companies that are building technology around being able to identify influencers. You know, companies like Dynamic Signal, where you tell them what it is that you want to market, what are the brand pillars for your product, and what your potential fan would look like. And they will actually go out and be able to tell you across the different social networks who's there. And then you can choose how you want to reach them, how do you want to approach them, what you want to say, you know, craft that message. So it really has, I mean, it's no longer that we can just blast out a message and expect people to listen to us. There's way too many messages out there. It's just like what Ethan was saying in the beginning, how everybody's, you know, said that the studios were going to go away first with Netflix and YouTube. We're not. You know, it's bullshit. They said the same thing about VHS, DVD. The only thing that almost put the studios was television, and that was because of egoism, but we can talk about that in another session. But you know, what happens, the more content out there, the more you're consuming it, the more you watch it, the more that you share it. And so we can no longer just yell out our message. We have to tell people why it's worth taking 2 hours of your time and turning off that device and actually having an emotional experience around a piece of content.
Once you've identified your key influencers or your biggest fans, are there some best practices to really reward them, whether it be for a big studio film or for a Kickstarter campaign, to kind of keep them within your fold and to get them to start spreading the word for you?
I'd say, you know, in the filmmakers that I'm talking to, it's include them in your process in a tangible way. And that doesn't mean like let them write your movie for you or direct it. It like means sharing and conversing with them and actually like having a conversation. You don't have to tweet back at everyone or message back everyone that's ever backed your project or had an interest in it. But give the impression that you're accessible and that your project is accessible in a real way, and that you're giving those people that are giving you their money and their time something of what you're making. Like, you can't be over communicative in a situation like that. Like, these people are all that matter. This is the reason you're doing what you're doing. And so it's kind of funny to find like the people that complain when they've backed a movie project are only complaining when they haven't heard from the director in like 2 months. There hasn't been an update. They want to be in. That's why they gave you money. And I think, you know, it's a lot of work too. But it's something that if you're using these platforms, if you're independent, you're going to have to get used to. It's like I have to every day make sure that I'm being accessible to people that are helping me do what I want to do.
And kind of along that note, in addition to not being communicative, what are some pitfalls that you've all seen in social media campaigns around films? I know we talked a little bit before about having multiple accounts for a film or some kind of entity, but in addition to that, what are some other problems that you've seen, and what are some quick fixes that filmmakers can begin to do?
That's a good question. I mean, I think disappearing obviously is the first problem. It's probably a much bigger problem for a studio film. Like, how do you control people that want to own it on their own because it's so big, like, and running away with your message. I actually would think that that's a good thing. How do you enable that? And like allowing people to like take what you have and do their own thing, and that's sort of becoming a big way of spreading the word about your movie. I've never worked on anything of that size, so I can't really say for certain. Gosh, I don't know. That's a good question.
No comment.
It's interesting. I mean, just speaking for us, and in some condition, actually not speaking for Warner Brothers at all, just for myself. I do think sometimes we, some of the studios, maybe the one I work at, can be so protective of IP. The marketing guys are going to hate me for saying this, but but I wish we let fans mess around with IP more. And we have a lot of people pushing for that and really, C-level people pushing for that. And then you've got other people that might own the IP. You know, maybe they're an author or a creator or something like that that's like, no, I'll never let a fan mess with my IP, because they're afraid of like that one thing in 10,000 that's offensive. But if it's offensive and bad, it's probably going to disappear and the cool stuff's going to rise up. So that's one thing I would say. The other thing I think is a big opportunity that I think we look more and more at is, you know, tying together marketing. We, you know, from the technology side, we're looking to create relationships with fans and consumers before they ever go to the movie theater, and then own that forever, right? Like throughout their lives. We want to keep that. So I think one thing, you know, at least for us, I mean, a lot of times we've sort of run marketing and certain things as in discrete windows. I think that's going to go away more and more with digital. I mean, I don't think you're going to have, yeah, because you want to own that person. Yeah.
You know, Ethan hits on a really important part. It's not just the studios that are controlling this. I mean, like, you know, the studios might just control the movie, but then there's, you know, the ancillary rights around licensing and gaming and all of these others. And so when you want to do something, it affects all of these other, you know, rights owners, and you have to get approval to do this one little thing, and then they say no because you can't use that word. You know, it's just, I mean, it's true. And so it's interesting because sometimes we have very young, excited people that come into our offices and they say, this is what you're doing wrong. And you sit there and you're like, okay, because we never thought of that. But this is why we can't do it right. You know, and we start explaining that, you know, that bowl of spaghetti is owned by a hell of a lot of people, and, you know, winding it makes it really, really difficult to sell. So, you know, I love the idea of more smaller films being made. First of all, this means that I'll have some really fun stuff to watch, and you guys can do some really, really cool stuff about it and around it, and you know, like deals that were made in the 80s that still live on today, you know, don't affect what you're doing. And so, you know, I think it's a really exciting time, because I was around when, you know, there was a lot of independent film, and then independent film kind of went away. I mean, you guys, you know, in Berlin, any given weekend, there's no less than 200 movies that you can see. And they're from all over the world. And we don't see them. And it's sad. You know, we have you look at the Cineplex and it's the same 8 movies. And I'd like to see more movies. I think that'd be a good thing for the industry.
Yeah, I think that's the beauty of what's happening, is that more voices can happen. And like, I'm with you, like the studios aren't going away. There's always going to be that top tier, and they can play with these tools that are out there, and they should. But what it's allowed is for smaller voices to find a really specific audience, like extremely specific in some cases, like 500 people that you make a movie for, but that's okay because you have all the tools to reach them with what you want. That's extremely exciting for anyone that wants to make something that's interesting.
Ethan talked about a little bit about this earlier in terms of the shift around distribution and distributing content, whether it be onto DVD or theatrically. And last week, George Lucas talked about the shift, how he's predicting more of a shift towards big tentpole films being released into theaters, and more of a Broadway type of sense, where it's much more of a spectacle for a lot more money per ticket. And I'm curious your takes on the future of theatrical distribution and versus non-theatrical distribution.
Isn't that kind of happening already? I mean, think about it, El Capitan. You know, you go, you buy a ticket, there's a show, it's extra, but your popcorn comes with it. You know, or some of the things that were happening with Groupon, where, you know, you buy a premiere ticket and, you know, it came with some extra stuff. I mean, it's kind of happening already.
And even there's that place out in Pasadena too, which I've wanted to go to for years, where it's like $30 for a ticket and you sit in a lazy boy.
Oh, there's one in the marina now.
Really?
Yeah.
It's pretty, yeah, it might be the same kind of.
And they let you drink a lot.
Yeah, it's supposed to be cool. They bring you drinks and food and stuff. You know, that's an area though too, which is a huge challenge. Because I was saying, Bettina, to your point earlier about sort of all the people involved, like that's a really interesting one, right? Because conversation that happens every day because somebody comes in and says we want to do this in the studio is like, why do you have windows? Get rid of windows. You know, sell it at home the day you come out theatrical. And the next day, I don't know if you guys know NATO, but the National Association of Theater Operators. That day they stop running your movie, right? Because they're a huge, you can't get your movie in a theater unless NATO's going to put your movie in the theater, and so you can't piss them off, you know. Even then, they're all scared because their business is, you know, a little bit hairy right now. I mean, they've seen, you know, not huge booming ticket sales for the last couple of years, and so this is another area where there's so many dependencies and people involved, and you have to sort of keep this ship afloat. It's pretty interesting. I do think there will be changes. I mean, I don't know that they say everything's going to blow up. I think it's all opportunities. I just think that I think they're making the pie bigger. You know, I think the studios, if we change for some of these things, I think could get bigger, could see revenues really grow. There would be some changes, but I think it's exciting.
I think, yeah, the studios can be more focused on just making those types of films and allowing the, you know, much smaller world to develop, like the underbelly of the entertainment industry, like middle class, you know, working filmmakers who can do things and find an audience for them. And now there's tools for that will, you know, you'll probably go spend $40 to go see a movie at a theater and it'll be a truly incredible experience. But you can also sell something for like $5 and have it delivered directly to your desktop or to your television, or do something like Tug, where you're basically crowdsourcing the theatrical screening of the film because you know there's going to be an audience for it. That's how, you know, I think it'll start to break down and there'll be more options for more people. And in the end, what I truly believe is that the distribution almost doesn't matter because the content is, you're not going to care where you watched it, right? It's just the content's there. That's why I think that he's predicting that in order for it to really be worth it, it's got to really be worth it, and you probably have to pay more for that. So,
do you think there's a chance for independents and smaller budget films to still go theatrical?
I think there is, but I don't think it matters anymore. I think it's just sort of like a waste. There's a great story, and these guys did a really great job of telling their story through their blog, but Indie Game the movie, you guys know about this film, they crowdfunded twice actually. And they shared their entire experience, and they had offers. They I don't know if they won at Sundance or it's documentary, but they very well received in the festival circuit. And then instead of taking a distribution deal that would have put it in theaters, limited, where who goes and spend money to go see a $10 documentary in a theater? There's people that will, but not a ton. And they give up a large percentage of their own. They decided that it was better to do direct distribution through the web, through digital download, and they get to keep all of that. They didn't get a lot of investor money in the movie. It was all crowdfunded. It's their product. They own it. You talk to the economics of making an independent film for years were backwards. The last person paid is the producer, and a lot of times you barely get anything if you're lucky you make money. But now you don't have to go make a distribution deal. I can sell directly through Vimeo. They take like 5% of my take, and I can set my price and do my own marketing, and I could probably come away just as good, if not better, and own everything to do with my film in the case that it does blow up, so that I can go out and do something even better the next time. And I think that's...
You can still have a stunt screening.
Yeah, you can still do a theater thing.
You can four-wall a theater with digital cinema, be able to, put it on DCP, take it in, do it. I mean, there was a fracking movie a documentary recently, I can't remember the name of it, but like...
Frack Nation.
Yes, yeah. It was so good, and I went to the stunt screening, and it was like fantastic, but it was gone after a weekend. But
festivals are becoming more popular, pop-up movie theaters, independent theater opportunities, like you were saying in Berlin. Like I think that movement. There's so many people that have content now that want that experience that you'll go do that as like an event, and it won't be $12 to go see something in the multiplex. It'll be like $8 to go see it with your friends, and that's the economics work. Because it's just smaller, and it's not, you don't have to worry about making up a $100 million marketing budget. You did it all for free. So
I mean, there are a few, Louis C.K., for example, is one good example of great success distributing your content directly to consumers. And there are some companies out there like Chill, for example, that are playing around in this space. Is this a viable option in terms of revenue for independent films on a broader scale? Or do you think it's more the VOD, DirecTV, Time Warner route?
I mean, this is a world that I live in as well. Like, it's totally viable. What you don't know about that stuff, or what sort of, if you go talk to these platforms, they're all trying to recruit you, and there's like Distrify, Chill, Vimeo, like everyone wants someone to sell the content through their platform. The problem is you can't be Louis C.K. unless you have his audience. And there isn't really a great solution other than your own ability to build an audience through social media and whatever marketing tools that you have to get out in front of people, maybe to promote some stuff on their front page. It's a viable model if you do that part. The community building is really what's crucial, because people will come buy your film if they know about it. But yeah, I think it truly is, as long as you understand that it takes a lot of effort and energy to go and bring people to those platforms. People can buy it there, and it's better. You're probably better off in the end as an independent filmmaker.
It seems like one of the huge values that studios bring to things like this, I'm sure you guys will agree, is that they're massive marketing machines, right? I mean, studios and distributors excel at marketing. So, I mean, that's one thing you can't really get another way, right? So, I mean, Louis C.K. is huge, but if I went out and did stand up and tried to sell it myself, I wouldn't nearly get the marketing that he did. So I mean, it's kind of echoing what you said too, or another movie. I mean, I think, I think actually a lot of the stuff that like Fox Searchlight has done has been amazing with what they're able to do with sort of smaller movies. That's really where I think, studios' labels are the same way. I mean, like, they can push and market artists, things like that, in ways that they can't do on their own. So,
Ethan, can you talk just a little bit about Media Camp and kind of the mission there in terms of incorporating this technology element into the studio, building it into the studio system?
I'm sure. I mean, this goes back to sort of, our mission is really how do we speed up innovation and speed up sort of new products going through our pipeline. To that end, we launched Media Camp, which is it's an accelerator program focused on media and entertainment technology companies. Essentially, companies that we could see ourselves doing business deals with or some sort of commercial deal with at the end of the period. It's a 12-week academy program, really similar to a 500 Startups or YC model, with the exception that it's focused on just media and entertainment. So one of our guys calls it a graduate level accelerator, because it's, we're just looking at that one piece. And they're all early, seed stage, bootstrapped. But we don't really do that Startup 101 piece. We tend to really dive deep into key issues that we see in media and entertainment. And I think one of the differences too that we do, and we saw a lot of soft benefits for us with this, is we assign mentors to every company who are at sort of decision-making levels across the company. That sort of integrates those startups back into our company, and we can really get exposure, or our executives can get exposure to the way that startups and entrepreneurs think. And that's a huge benefit to us as a company, that's looking to sort of move rapidly and prototype. And I'm a big fan of saying, fail, sort of fail your way to success. Not in a bad way. I know people use that sometimes in a bad way, but I mean, failure's not a bad thing, right? If you're trying something new, you should be willing to sort of stumble and fall in the pursuit of something really different and exciting. And I think, we are trying to sort of look at that and build relationships with entrepreneurs who do that. So,
I want to open it up here to questions in 1 second, but last question for everyone from me. Can we go down the line and all of you say one innovation that you see coming out in the near future, or one that you're very excited about?
Okay, guys in the back who are talking, you're kind of annoying us up front, so probably the people who want to hear us. So you can, yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm a mom.
This is hard. I don't know. I feel like I should think of some really insightful thing, but at first, so I haven't really had time to think about it. I think everyone said mobile forever, but I think that mobile is huge, and the ability of having location-aware services and really. I think wearable tech is going to go into that, right? It's not just going to be phone, it's going to be things on your clothes. I think that all of those. I'm really excited by that stuff. I've seen some really cool things. This is actually outside entertainment, but I saw a guy from Under Armour do a presentation, and he got himself in trouble because what he presented isn't feasible yet. And he showed it to like their marketing and BD guys. They're like, you gotta find that. But he had this thing where they have a great sizzle reel, and at the end of it, this woman comes out and she's in like a white bodysuit, right? And then she looks at her arm and she punches something in, and her top turns red, her pants turn blue. And I was like, that is sweet, He says, yeah, all the sales guys want that. But I mean, I don't think that's that far off. I think that, this embedding of technology into it's this internet everywhere, this internet of things. I think that's gonna be a big change. And that may change what we do too, because I mean, what kind of content do you feed to somebody's, wrist, whatever. Just sort of new opportunities to create new content, so.
I totally agree with that. Because it's amazing how kids today have no qualm watching like their favorite TV show on this little device. And I remember growing up, for me, going from the black and white television where you had to be the antenna for the family, right? And the remote control, like the human remote control, and finally getting like the big ass TV with the remote. You're like, I won! And now your kids all want to be on these little tiny, okay, anyway. All right, but here's my thing, all right? So I talk to a lot of parents, both just from socially through school and everything else, and everybody's worried about the screen time, right? I gotta keep my kids off the screen. And it drives me nuts because I fire back at them, what happens, people, when your kid's job is to be able to think spatially in 3D across multiple screens? What happens then when you've kept the device away from them? So stop worrying about the screen time and start worrying about what they're doing on the screen. And so I would love there to be a revolution where coding is required in schools. Oh my God! So tomorrow, when you guys are all sleeping off your hangovers, I'm going to be driving to the valley to take my kid to a Lego robotics class, and I would, and so I guess I'm hoping for a future where people stop looking at technology as something that they do over there, and it's something that everybody does.
I'm excited about interactive TV. So I've been in the world of mobile for 10 years, and we've been making games, for Java and Brew and Symbian, and now iOS and Android and Windows Phone 8. And now, we're moving into a world where we're actually living in a world now where people are watching TV shows and sending text messages to their friends. I'm one of them. On The Bachelorette, every Monday night, all my best girlfriends across the country were texting each other saying, oh, Desiree got a really bad group of dudes this year. Everybody's chiming in, and we are having a conversation during the whole show. And, we're really looking into some opportunities for, our company to take advantage of this relationship when people are sitting down watching your movie or your TV show, and how else can you interact with them on their smartphone and even create a more engaging experience and have them tied even more closely to your brand?
My answer is pretty similar to that, and Ethan, what you're saying about connected everything. I think that the opportunities for storytelling are like, you can literally do anything, and I think that's so cool. When someone's gonna tell a story on the lights of a city, by changing what the windows are on, and so many crazy things can happen, and you're seeing this stuff kind of infiltrate our world through the arts, but you can literally start telling stories on anything and in any format you want. That's we're a history of as a human race of storytellers. That's how we pass on knowledge. That's how we do everything, pass on culture. And when you can do it through all these different objects and in different formats, I think it's going to be, we're just going to improve as a species, and that's kind of exciting to see all that happen.